ever find yourself at a concert swaying to the beat and suddenly thinking, maybe it's time for these guys to call it quits? Well, you're not alone. Let's get into the juiciest gossip in the music industry. 20. U2.
See the storm set in your eyes.
We're diving into the controversial territory of U2, a band that, let's face it, has had its fair share of both glory and criticism. Remember, this is all in good fun, so don't shoot the messenger. U2 burst onto the scene with the vigor of the post-punk era and even gifted us with the unforgettable Fire, a masterpiece collaboration with the legendary Brian Eno. However, as the years rolled on, so did the critiques. Since the mid-1980s, U2 has been a lightning rod for criticism, accused of selling out and, some argue, becoming a caricature of their former selves. One of the main points of contention is Bono's supposed messiah complex. Now, don't get me wrong, confidence is key, but some argue Bono's taken it a step too far. And then there's The Edge, with his heavy, almost comical reliance on delay. The quartet, no doubt talented, has attracted flack from none other than Blur's Damon Albarn. Die-hard U2 fans might argue that the band is an easy target for those who don't understand their early power, and to be fair, that's a valid point. But even the most loyal fans can't deny that U2 has made it challenging for themselves. Tracks like Vertigo and Get On Your Boots might fall flat compared to the brilliance of their early material on albums like October and War. Some even categorize these later cuts as bland and laughable stadium rock. Let's talk about the sellout accusations. It's no secret that U2 has picked up a ton of detractors on their journey to becoming one of the biggest bands in the world. From accusations of selling out with Gloria to criticism of their arena anthems like Pride in the Name of Love, the band has weathered its fair share of storms. Even the experimental sounds of Achtung Baby shook some fans loose that were acquired during the With or Without You era. And let's not even start on the divisive pop era. The 2009 record No Line on the Horizon deserves a second look. But between relatively lackluster sales and the Spider-Man Turn Off the Dark debacle, it's understandable that some fans might be throwing in the towel. But fear not, U2 aficionados. The band is acutely aware that they have something to prove this time around. With years spent prepping their new album alongside producer Danger Mouse, they're gearing up for a comeback. Whether you love them or love to hate them, it'll be fascinating to see what U2 delivers when their backs are against the wall once again. Stay tuned for more musical drama. 19. Yes. I think it's time to talk about Yes, a band that's seen its fair share of changes and not everyone is thrilled about it. Now, before we dive in, let's put it out there that respecting the wishes of the departed is essential. Alan White and Steve Howe are carrying on Chris Squire's legacy, and that's commendable. But, and it's a big but, is it time for Yes to gracefully exit stage left? As of now, there's not a single original member left in Yes. Now, this isn't unheard of in the world of rock, but without the pillars John Anderson and Chris Squire, what remains is a band with a lineup that wasn't part of the iconic Fragile, Close to the Edge, or 90125 albums. The band managed to thrive without Howe and White in the past, so why the insistence on continuing? The current Yes lineup feels more like a tribute act, doesn't it? John Davison, the current singer, is undeniably talented, but let's face it, he's essentially a vocal copy of John Anderson. And then there's Billy Sherwood, also talented, whose bass playing and vocals strongly echo the style of the late Chris Squire. It's not about bringing a fresh perspective, it's about mimicking the key members of the band. Now let's talk about Alan White's drumming. Some say he's become a mere shell of his former self. On the last album, Heaven and Earth, his playing was described as basic and light. Even with the heavyweight production touch of Roy Thomas Baker, it seemed White's drumming failed to make the impact it once did. Live reviews only solidify the notion that maybe it's time for a graceful exit. And here's the wild card. What if John Anderson were to return? Now that would be a game changer. Anderson, currently rocking out with violinist Jean-Luc Ponty, seems content. Bringing him back might truly revive the essence of Yes. But let's be real, unless ticket sales take a nosedive, Howe and White might not be dialing Anderson anytime soon. For die-hard Yes fans, it's a bit of a conundrum. Sure, the current lineup may sound like Yes, but does sounding like Yes make it truly Yes? As a longtime fan, there's a sentiment of wanting to preserve the band's golden era with Anderson and Squire, remembering them at their peak. Change can be tough, especially when it comes to legendary bands like Yes. The question remains, is it time for Yes to gracefully bow out and let the echoes of their classic era linger on? What do you think? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. 18. Status Quo. Okay, let's move on to the timeless rockers, Status Quo. Now after 5 decades, 3 heart attacks, and more knob jokes than we can count, are they still the same powerhouse on stage? Well, not according to Francis Rossi, the frontman of this enduring band. As Status Quo embarks on their unplugged acoustic tour, there's a sense of weariness creeping in. Rossi, in a candid moment before hitting the Glasgow stage, hints at a sentiment we've heard before: retirement. At almost 66, he confesses to feeling the itch to be liked and the urge to play for an audience, but there's a subtle admission: I think I'm over it. Rossi, sitting alone in the Crew catering room, seems contemplative. The nostalgia of the end of the road tour in 1984, which was supposed to be a farewell, comes to mind. Yet, as history proved, that retirement wasn't the end. So should we take this retirement talk seriously? Well, maybe with a pinch of salt. As Rossi joins the soundcheck, the weariness is palpable. Barely acknowledging Rick Parfitt, his bandmate of 48 years, there's a sense of resignation. The craggy features, salt and pepper hair, and the balding head paint a picture of a man who might just be looking forward to retirement. Now let's talk about the Rossi and Parfitt dynamic. It's been a long-running drama, or perhaps a farce at times. Despite the ups and downs, as long as these two can keep it together, the Quo show goes on. However, recent reports suggest a strain. A story in the Sunday People claims that Rossi and Parfitt rarely speak anymore, hinting at a breakup. Rossi's downbeat view and admission that they don't socialize off stage add fuel to the speculation. But hold on, Parfitt has a different take. In a video interview on the People's website, he states that they work well within the Quo bubble, emphasizing the need for that to work. Rossi, on the other hand, admits they may be coming to the end of it. It's not a bunch of young boys against the world anymore. They've grown apart after spending every minute together in their younger days. Well, what is the conclusion? Retirement looming, or just a momentary fatigue? As fans, it's a delicate balance of nostalgia and the reality of aging rock stars. What do you think? 17. Styx. Let's explore the world of Styx, the American rock band that has been around since 1972. Now, Styx is known for a lot of things, blending melodic hard rock with acoustic vibes, tossing in synthesizers and acoustic pianos, and even spicing things up with a bit of international musical theater flair. They've been on a journey, evolving from a progressive rock sound in the 70s to embracing pop and soft rock in the 80s. But here's the scoop. Not everything in the Styx universe is as harmonious as their melodies. Dennis DeYoung, one of the founding members, has some strong feelings about the band's current state. He believes Styx has been working hard, maybe a bit too hard, at diminishing its own reputation. Ouch! According to DeYoung, there's this trend of ignoring or even mocking some of the material that he brought to the table. In his own words, DeYoung says, "I can't think of a band that's worked harder than Styx at diminishing its own reputation and to denigrate the music that we created together." That's a bold statement, right? He goes on to highlight the essence of what made Styx special. uplifting and positive music that resonated with fans. Now he's not too thrilled about the idea of harming that legacy. DeYoung's got a point. Styx fans fell in love with the band because of the musical magic they created together. Now he's advocating for one last hurrah, a chance for fans to get a glimpse of the original lineup back on stage. And honestly, who wouldn't want to witness that? 16. Motley Crew. Well, enough said. Let us discuss Motley Crew. These guys have been on a retirement tour for what feels like forever, right? I mean, seriously, they're dragging it out longer than a Brett Favre comeback. It's like, just hang up the guitars already, fellas. Mick Mars might as well be turning into a statue at this rate. And can we address the giant in the room? There's nothing remotely motley about a bunch of middle-aged dudes who are trying to stay sober, well, kind of, and resorting to selling tickets on Groupon. Yeah, you heard that right, Groupon. And don't even get me started on Vince Neil. Rumor has it he fell off the wagon again. But hey, after seeing him on Skating with the Stars, can we blame the guy for hitting the bottle? Let's be real here. Motley Crue lost their crewness after Dr. Feelgood. The wild antics, the crazy lifestyle, it's all gone downhill since then. I mean, come on, this is the band that was supposed to overdose or end up in jail by now. You can't be Motley Crue and start collecting AARP benefits. It just doesn't work like that. It's time for them to either spice things up with some good old-fashioned behind-the-music drama or just call it quits. Those are the only two options left on the table. 15. Limp Biscuit. Alright, let's talk about Limp Biscuit. The band that exploded onto the scene in the late 90s, blending rock and rap in a way that was like a musical Molotov cocktail. Fred Durst, Wes Borland, Sam Rivers, John Otto, and DJ Lethal created this whirlwind of a sound that took over the airwaves, MTV, and basically every angsty teenager's playlist. Now there's no denying that Limp Bizkit had their moment in the sun. They were everywhere, from sold-out world tours to dominating festivals. But then, like a firework that burned too bright, they suddenly dropped off the music radar, leaving all of us wondering, what happened to Limp Bizkit? Fast forward to 2009, Fred Durst opens up about the hate they received. He acknowledges the criticism, saying, "I got abused a lot growing up. I saw a bunch of bullies and assholes who tortured me and ruined my life." The band took a step back, and for a while, American fans didn't seem too nostalgic for the Nookie days. In 2011, they made a comeback with Gold Cobra. The reception? Well, let's just say it was mixed. Some praised the throwback to their nu metal roots, while others felt like the rock rap ship had sailed, and Limp Bizkit missed it. The album peaked at 16 on the Billboard 200, but with only 63,000 copies sold in the first 6 months, it's safe to say they didn't recapture the magic. So here's the million-dollar question. Should Limp Bizkit keep rolling or gracefully bow out of the spotlight? Are you still rocking the backward red cap? Or do you think it's time for them to roll on out of the rap rock era? Drop your thoughts in the comments below. 14. The Who. Okay, let's talk about The Who. Arguably one of the greatest bands to ever grace the stage. I mean, come on. Their concerts in the 60s and 70s were the stuff of legends, and their albums during that time? Pure brilliance, my friends. Each one was like a sonic journey, taking you to places you never knew existed. But let's face it, even rock gods like The Who aren't immune to the passage of time. Before Keith Moon's tragic passing in '78, they were already on a bit of a decline. Sure, they made a comeback in '99 with a stripped-down lineup, but then John Entwistle's death hit them like a ton of bricks. Now they're literally half dead. Roger Daltrey's vocal cords may have recovered from their rough patch a few years back, and their Quadrophenia tour was pretty darn impressive, but let's be real, they're not spring chickens anymore. That's why they've been mulling over the idea of hanging up their instruments for good. In fact, they've even talked about planning their last big tour for 2015. That's right, folks, The Who might be saying goodbye to the stage, but not before possibly going out with a bang a la Elton John. Pete Townsend and Roger Daltrey have been candid about the toll their 60-plus year careers has taken on them. Touring? It's like putting your body through a meat grinder, according to Daltrey. And let's not even get started on the aftermath of life off the road. It's like trying to adjust to normalcy after living in a rock and roll whirlwind. But hey, despite the aches, pains, and the realization that retirement might be looming closer than ever, Daltrey's not ready to hang up his microphone just yet. After all, as he puts it, you don't give this business up, it gives you up. So, what do you think? 13. Coldplay. Yes, Coldplay. With hits like Yellow and Fix You, the band has been soothing our souls since 2000. Comprising Chris Martin, Johnny Buckland, Guy Berryman, and Will Champion, this British quartet has been a force to be reckoned with, bagging 7 Grammy Awards and selling over 100 million albums worldwide. Now they've recently extended their deal with Warner Music, ensuring we'll be hearing more from them in the coming years. But hold on, there's a twist in the melody. Chris Martin dropped a bombshell during a pre-recorded BBC radio show. Brace yourselves, Coldplay fans. They're planning to call it quits on making new music after their upcoming album in 2025. In the clip, co-host Joe Wiley popped the question we all feared. Will there come a time when Coldplay stops? To which Chris Martin, with a touch of nostalgia and maybe a hint of melancholy, spilled the beans. Well, I know. I can tell you. We're going to do, I think we have 3 more. Our last proper record will come out at the end of 2025. And I think after that, we'll only tour. And maybe we'll do some sort of collaborative things but the Coldplay catalog as it was finishes then. Now, whether you're a die-hard Coldplay enthusiast or part of the vocal minority that's never been on board, you can't deny their impact on the music scene. They've been divisive, with some hailing them as Radiohead's worthy successors and others, well, not so much. Yet Chris Martin, ever the realist, acknowledged that they might never be the epitome of cool. But hey, when you're rich, successful, and married to Gwyneth Paltrow, who needs cool points, right? 12. Maroon 5. Remember Maroon 5? They were the band that dominated the mid-2000s with hits like Payphone, Girls Like You, and She Will Be Loved. But as time marches on, it seems the musical landscape may be ready for a changing of the guard, and Maroon 5 might need to consider taking a bow. There's no avoiding it. The band's frontman, Adam Levine, hasn't been immune to the pitfalls of fame, facing a cheating scandal that made headlines. And as for the music, some argue that Maroon 5's recent offerings lean toward the semi-corny side, raising questions about the direction of their musical journey. What's striking about Maroon 5, critics say, is their staying power coupled with a certain characterless quality. With Geordie being their 7th studio album, each predecessor boasting million-copy sales in the US alone, there's a lingering joke about the anonymity of the band members not named Adam Levine. One might playfully envision them at rehearsals, exchanging blank stares and asking, "Sorry, can I help you?" Digging deeper, Maroon 5's music is often accused of lacking a profound connection or deeper inspiration. Unlike many artists whose sound reflects their diverse influences, Maroon 5 is seen as overtly chasing mainstream pop trends without leaving a discernible imprint of their own musical roots. The departure from the vague Jamiroquai vibe of their early days was further solidified when a legion of co-writers and producers joined their ranks. While Adam Levine's vocals occasionally draw comparisons to Colin Hay of Men at Work fame, it's brushed off as mere coincidence. There's a sense that Maroon 5 shies away from the adventurous forays into the left field that bands like Coldplay occasionally undertake. Fans can be rest assured there won't be any surprise credits from Brian Eno or horn arrangements by Femi Kuti gracing Maroon 5's albums. 11. Bon Jovi. Bon Jovi, the rock band that burst onto the scene in 1984, has managed to defy the odds and remain a musical force for over 3 decades. Their enduring popularity is nothing short of remarkable. In the grand scheme of things, who would have predicted in 1984 that 30 years later, these guys would still be rocking and holding their ground as one of the biggest bands on the planet? While they've undeniably achieved immense success in their homeland, the United States, Bon Jovi's staggering popularity reaches even greater heights in Europe and parts of Asia. Such is their fan base that when guitarist Richie Sambora departed early from a tour, the band simply shrugged off the setback and continued their musical journey as if nothing had happened. The audience, seemingly unfazed, reveled in hearing Jon Bon Jovi belt out "Livin' on a Prayer" for what felt like the 9 millionth time. Yet beneath the surface of their enduring success lies a bone of contention for many: the repetition of the same songs ad nauseum. Some argue they could happily go their entire lives without another rendition of "Wanted Dead or Alive." Step into a karaoke bar and you're practically guaranteed to hear someone belting out a Bon Jovi track within the first 20 minutes. It's this predictability that irks some music enthusiasts, leading them to question whether it's time for Bon Jovi to gracefully exit the stage and give other acts a chance in the spotlight. The prospect of enduring the same setlist in perpetuity raises doubts about the band's ability to evolve creatively. Will Bon Jovi continue their stadium-filling prowess into 2025? Or is it time for them to consider a well-deserved encore? 10. Kiss.
I wanna give it all to you in the dark.
Formed in 1972, Kiss emerged onto the music scene with their distinctive leather outfits and iconic face paint, setting a trend that became synonymous with their brand. However, as time marched on and the members of Kiss find themselves navigating the realms of their 60s and 70s, the question arises: is it time for the legendary rock band, especially Gene Simmons, to acknowledge that the days of their signature look and high-energy performances might be bordering on the verge of becoming, well, a tad gross? As Kiss celebrates the remarkable milestone of their 50th anniversary since formation, there's no denying the global impact they've had treating audiences to a rock and roll extravaganza with their unique flair. However, even for a band that wants to rock and roll all night, there comes a juncture where the tempo needs to slow and retirement beckons. Gene Simmons, the outspoken bassist of Kiss, has made it clear that the band is embarking on the path of retirement, not out of a decline in musical prowess, but rather, as Simmons puts it, self-respect and a deep sense of love for their fans. The decision to bid farewell to touring is presented as a strategic move, an exit while they are still at the zenith of their career. So, is it a timely and well-deserved farewell for Kiss, ensuring they exit the stage on a high note? Or do you think they should continue rocking? 9. Guns N' Roses. 17 years and the promise of free Dr. Pepper for the entire populace finally brought forth Chinese Democracy. Axl Rose, the enigmatic force behind Guns N' Roses, was determined to prove that he still had the musical prowess that once defined an era. Unfortunately for those holding out hope, the album only reinforced the skepticism that Axl had lost his touch long ago. Now, in a surprising encore, there are whispers of another album in the pipeline. It seems Axl is on a mission to silence the doubters, though the reception might be as chilly as the reaction to his past questionable fashion choices. Cornrows, anyone? Despite Axl's tenacity, the revolving door of band members tells a tale of its own. Working with him appears to be a challenge, evident in the constant lineup changes. Yet Axl remains steadfast in his conviction that the issue lies with everyone else in the industry, not himself. For die-hard fans longing for the golden era of Guns N' Roses, there's a glimmer of hope. Rumors circulate about a possible reunion with Slash, the iconic guitarist synonymous with the band's success. Mark Cantor might be optimistic about making it happen, but given Axl's track record, many remain skeptical. 8. The Beach Boys. The Beach Boys, iconic architects of sun-soaked harmonies and feel-good tunes. But wait, Who's that guy everyone's pointing fingers at? Yes, it's Mike Love, often hailed as the rock and roll villain. The narrative unfolds with him allegedly bullying the genius Brian Wilson, commandeering the Beach Boys' ship and steering it into the realm of state fair performances. Ouch. On the flip side, there's another tale, the one where Mike Love co-wrote and belted out the band's greatest hits, navigating them through turbulent waters even after Brian's departure. It's a divisive narrative to say the least. Now, fast forward to the late 90s, and Mike Love decides to take the Beach Boys stage solo. No other originals in sight. Not even a nod to Brian Wilson and Al Jardine. Fans are left scratching their heads, wondering why John Stamos is on stage rather than the founding members. Sacrilegious? Many Beach Boys aficionados seem to think so. Yet despite the controversy and fans yearning for the good old days, Mike Love shows no signs of putting the group out of its misery. The 2012 50th anniversary tour was a glimmer of hope, but since then, it's been a tale of two Beach Boys. Mike Love's official rendition with Bruce Johnston and Brian Wilson's solo band featuring himself and Al Jardine. What's your take on this Beach Boys saga? 7. Rolling Stones. Hold on to your rock and roll hats, folks. The Rolling Stones are still rolling, and farewell doesn't seem to be in their vocabulary. Despite constant tour finale speculations, Mick Jagger and the gang keep on rocking. Sure, their studio output in the past 2 decades is more of a trickle than a flood, but who needs new albums when you're a touring juggernaut? Let's talk dollars and cents, or rather, hundreds of dollars. Tickets for their last tour soared to dizzying heights, some even brushing the $800 mark. That's a hefty toll, pricing out a good chunk of the fan base. And let's not forget the set list. It's a tad too predictable for the taste of even the most die-hard Stones aficionados. But wait, there's a silver lining. The last tour, arguably their best in years, brought back the legendary Mick Taylor for a few numbers, injecting a burst of inspiration into the performance. If they decide to grace America with their presence again, catching a Stones show might just be worth it. After all, you never know when it's truly the last one. 6. Leonard Skinnard. Next, let's move on to Leonard Skinnard. This band has been through more twists and turns than a winding southern road. Surviving a tragic plane crash in 1977, the lineup has undergone some serious changes over the years. Drummer Artemis Pyle, a survivor of that fateful crash, is no longer part of the band. Neither is guitarist Ed King, who famously co-wrote Sweet Home Alabama. Original drummer Bob Burns departed long before the tragedy. The only remaining pre-crash member is guitarist Gary Rossington. And if we're diving into the technicalities, current guitarist Ricky Medlock even had a stint behind the drum kit back in 1970. Nowadays, Leonard Skinnard feels more like a tribute act, with just one original member and the lead singer's brother holding down the fort. They've belted out Freebird and That Smell more times than you can count, leaving fans wondering if it's time to bid farewell. Sure, they could bring back some of the surviving members for a reunion, but that possibility seems as remote as the back roads of Alabama. So what's next for Leonard Skinnard? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. 5. Nickelback. Mention their name and you're likely to get a mixed bag of reactions. Love them or loathe them, these guys from Canada have certainly made their mark on the music scene. It all started back in 2000 when How You Remind Me catapulted them into the spotlight, filling arenas with eager fans. But along with the fame came a tidal wave of criticism. It seemed like everyone had something to say about Nickelback, and most of it wasn't flattering. Now let's cut them a break. They never claimed to be the second coming of the Beatles or the saviors of rock and roll. They just wanted to make music and play concerts. Simple as that. But for some reason, they became the poster boys for everything wrong with modern rock. Perhaps it's because they rose to fame at a time when other bands were supposed to take the spotlight. Whatever the reason, Nickelback found themselves shouldering the burden of being the most hated band of the era. But let's be real here. they're not the only ones churning out questionable tunes. 4. Aerosmith. Aerosmith, the legendary rock band that's been melting faces since 1970. With all 5 original members still in the game, they're like the elder statesmen of rock. But even legends have their limits. Remember that awkward 5-year stretch in the late 70s to early 80s when guitarists Joe Perry and Brad Whitford took a hiatus? Yeah, seems like ancient history now. These guys have been through it all, and they've probably forgotten they were ever gone. But here's the thing, Aerosmith is finally gearing up for a retirement tour. And honestly, it's about time. Steven Tyler and the gang might still have the rock star spirit, but let's face it, they're not getting any younger. Touring becomes a logistical nightmare, and does anyone even remember they're still hitting the stage? Some fans argue that they're still brilliant live, and hey, they can still bring the house down when they're on their game. But maybe it's time to hang up the mic stands and call it a day. Sure, they might not have any more groundbreaking records left in them, but they've already given us more classics than we can count. So what do you think? 3. Metallica. Enter Metallica, the heavy metal titans who have been melting faces since 1981. James Hetfield and Lars Ulrich founded this iconic band in Los Angeles, and they've been thrashing their way through the decades. But is it time for them to unplug and retire the mosh pits? Metallica has been a powerhouse in the heavy metal scene for over 4 decades. Yep, you heard it right, 4 decades. Drummer Lars Ulrich recently spilled the beans, revealing that retirement isn't on their agenda anytime soon. They're not ready to hang up those guitars just yet. Sure, they've got a legion of fans who live for the thunderous riffs and ear-shattering solos. But let's face it, the music scene has evolved and newer, younger heavy metal bands are grabbing the spotlight. Metallica might be legends, but is there still room for them in this ever-changing landscape? In a recent chat with Rolling Stone, Lars Ulrich shared some insights into Metallica's place in today's music scene. They seem determined to keep the flame alive, unwilling to bow out gracefully like some of their peers. So what's your take on Metallica's refusal to retire? Are they still the gods of metal, or is it time for them to pass the torch to the next generation? 2. Def Leppard. Def Leppard are the rock legends who have been pouring sugar on us since 1980. Over 40 years, 100 million copies sold, and countless anthems later, is it finally time for them to hang up their guitars and bid us farewell? They're undeniably one of the world's best-selling music artists, but as the members of Def Leppard enter their mid to late 60s, the question lingers. Should they schedule a farewell tour and let Def Leppard become a cherished memory of the past? A close call almost had us saying goodbye earlier than expected. Frontman Joe Elliott faced a health scare that nearly forced him into early retirement. In 2015, the Drastic Symphony's orchestral album brought some fresh tunes, and the band embarked on a world tour with Motley Crue. But let's rewind a bit. Elliott received a stark warning from his doctor in 2015, revealing a health issue that could have silenced his iconic voice for good. Vocal rehab became the lifeline to keep the music alive. Elliott underwent the process, and fortunately, his vocal cords found their second wind. As Def Leppard continues to rock the stages, the question looms larger. Is it time for a grand farewell? A climax worthy of their legendary career? 1. Ario Speedwagon. Closing out our lineup of bands that just won't hang up their hats is none other than Ario Speedwagon. But wait, there's a twist in this tale. Founding member and keyboardist Neil Doughty decided to bid adieu to the touring life in January 2023, marking the end of an era for the band. But did Ario Speedwagon follow suit? Not quite. They've still got a jam-packed schedule with dozens of shows lined up for the year ahead. Ario Speedwagon has been a touring powerhouse for decades, but perhaps it's time for them to acknowledge that their glory days might be fading into the rearview mirror. After a remarkable 55-year journey with Ario Speedwagon, Neil Doughty, the keyboard maestro and founding member, made the decision to retire from touring. For a man who spent his entire adult life on the road, it's a momentous transition. It was all that traveling that finally got to me, reflects the 76-year-old Neil. Playing the shows and seeing the loyal fans made it all worthwhile, he adds, reminiscing on the years of hard work. The departure of Neil Doughty marks a significant change for the band. It'll be strange not having Neil behind the keyboards, remarks lead vocalist Kevin Cronin. We'll miss his quick wit and engaging conversations on those endless bus rides. But this is what Neil needs, and we stand behind him, he concludes, showing support for Neil's decision. As Ario Speedwagon charts the course ahead without one of their founding pillars, the question remains: will they continue to thrive on the road, or is it time for the band to hit the brakes and savor the journey they've embarked upon for over 5 decades? What are your thoughts on Ario Speedwagon's journey? Are you ready for the next chapter, or do you still want to rock out with them? That's all for today. What are your thoughts? Agree? Disagree? Let us know in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more music content, and ring the notification bell to stay updated. Until next time, stay tuned.